Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to everyone on the West Coast, and I guess early evening for anyone joining us on the East Coast. My name is Blair Dorr, and I'm here from Headed To. And today we're going to be presenting career readiness strategies for remote learning in 2020-2021 with CareerZone and CareerExplorer. Some of you may have been on some of our webinars back in the spring, just after the COVID outbreak and lockdown and everything else. And it was a really stressful time, I know, for all of you. And I think we've all come through the summer with a better sense of at least how to manage our classrooms. Many of us are still working remotely. And so what we wanted to do is kind of give you an update on what's happening inside the system, but more specifically, when we look at the CareerZone and CareerExplorer, what we want to do is make it as easy as possible for you. The management toolbar is kind of your way of knowing that you have either a free educator account or the paid upgrade account. Now, if you don't see a management toolbar and you are a teacher, then you should request a free educator account from the website. And we usually will promote that pretty actively on the homepage of your site, even before you log in, about how to do it. So if you have questions about how to upgrade to a free educator account, you're more than welcome to email us at sales@headedto.com. But assuming you're able to get your free educator account, you're going to pop in here and you're going to see this management toolbar. And the educator code is your unique 6-digit or 6-character code that allows you to bring students under your management. So that's yours, right? Don't use anyone else's, because if you share that with a student, then that student's going to go under their management, not yours. Always make sure that if you're sharing an educator code, it's your own, and share that with your kids, and then they'll type that code into a similar blue box to what you see here on their page, and then they'll come under your management. That's basically the process. In California, if you have a free educator account, you're going to be able to manage up to 50 students. If you have demand for more and you need to go a lot higher than 50, we do offer individual account upgrades. We call it a premium educator account upgrade, where you can manage up to 175 students. And the price for that is $89 per academic year. So we'll talk about that later, but just to be aware. Further down to the right of your management toolbar, you'll see a button to access your users. This will show you all the students that you have under management right now. So this is an example classroom. Right now, I've got 27 users under my management. One thing I'll point out is one of those users is you. Okay, so you'll see at the very top, this demo user is Eugene, right? He's right at the top, manager 1, right? And he can actually access his own information as a teacher if he wants to. Where that comes in handy is a lot of times you're going to want to, if you say you create a lesson that you learned about how to do it today and you're excited about it, but before you assign it to the kids, you just want to get a feel for how it's going to look for the kids. Well, you might create it, and then you might, pull up your own name. So in this case, I'm going to pull up Eugene. Oops, sorry, that did not work on first type. Let's see. Oh, the wonders of live demos. It should be pulling up right now, but let's imagine for a moment that it did. We would be able to pull up that individual user and assign the lesson to just that user, which is yourself, and then you can actually play with the lesson and interact with it to get a sense of what the student experience will be. More than likely, if you type in your name, it'll work. It just didn't work for me right there. It's not a really important piece of this presentation. We're going to get to a lot more later. So that's a little bit of the update there. And then in terms of lessons, the other big tab for you is to access the lessons that you've created inside the system. So if you're using a free account, the only lessons you have access to are the ones that you yourself have created. And that's what we're going to talk about, how you do that today in the webinar. If you're using the upgrade, you actually have less access to all the lessons in the system, all the pre-populated lessons. We've actually added a number over the summer with a focus specifically on special education and helping kids understand skills around interviews. We've also added some different lessons for teachers in there. So check it out. If you're an upgrade user, you'll see some new stuff in there this year, and we hope you enjoy it. Okay, so I've given you a little bit of that orientation to the toolbar, and this kind of feeds into that first kind of point, which is what are the realities of remote learning about careers? Well, one of the really hard parts about having your kids remotely right now is, if we're in a CTE context, there's a lot less you can do in this context without having a really strong software or technology backbone to the work you're doing. For special ed, this has been an especially challenging time for a whole host of reasons. And so really what we think about when we think about using the system is how to make this as easy as possible. We know that you all have been bombarded with different systems to use and processes and everything else, and it really isn't easy to keep up with it. So I appreciate that. The team appreciates that, and we're trying to make this really straightforward for you. So from our perspective, if you're using any system or doing career education, you can't dive directly into asynchronous learning. We don't think it's a best practice from our experience so far to just have kids go in the career zone and do a lesson. What we've seen work so far is to have at least some time in a synchronous learning context where the teacher is live with students, explaining at the very least kind of what's the idea of the Career Zone and Career Explorer. What are we trying to do here? Some of your students may already be aware, but it's always good to give them a refresher. And that's where I wanted to kind of start with everyone on the call. That the Career Zone and Career Explorer are really designed to make sure that students are understanding themselves before they go and start developing career plans, right? It's one thing to say you want to be a doctor, but the real question is, well, not just why, but does that make sense for who you are as a kid or as a student or as someone even after high school? Does it really match to your personality traits, to your interests, to your work values? And so what Career Zone and Career Explorer has done is pull in the ONED assessments, among others, to kind of give this entire module of Discover Possibilities where students focus on themselves, on their own interests, their own values, their own lifestyle needs, beginning there before they dive into careers. Now, if I was demoing this for students in a live and asynchronous context and introducing the concept of self-assessment for the first time, the place I might go is quick assessment. Some of you may already know what the quick assessment's all about, but this is where students are introduced to the concept of the Holland codes, which is sort of this tried and true method of understanding different interest areas for a student and how that matches to careers. This race, they call it RACIC, this 6-feature or character wheel allows students to learn about what each of these character traits are or interests are, see how much they think it matches to them, and then in this particular module, they can quickly select a few or change it up, right? They can also change the order of these things if they want to. So that's possible too. Now, if you do that, you can quickly view the results and then see all the occupations that match to those interests. Now, this is not the best self-assessment for really going deep into what interests a student. It's really a great way to demonstrate how the concept works. And so it's just, if you're introducing the concept, it allows you as an educator to show it pretty quickly, to give an idea that, okay, hey, like we did put in those 3 things, these were the occupations that came up. But if we went back and we did a totally different set of interests, we're going to get a totally different set of occupations. And that's kind of the idea, right? And that's kind of how you're articulating it to students. Okay, so In the live context, I might start there. And if you have time, and a lot of you are trying to jam so much in, there isn't a whole lot of time, but if you can go back and go deeper, then the other profiler that we would potentially have you demonstrate live for kids would be the interest profiler. And I'll show you that a little bit later in the call, but that's a really good one to show them in a live context so they understand self-assessment. So that's really part one, is making sure in a live context before you're kind of going into the career education modules that they at least understand that, hey, the Career Zone and Career Explorer is about self-assessment first. And that's really where you want to start. And that's why when we do our lesson in a bit, we're really going to actually just assign a couple of tasks from Discover Possibilities. I'm going to show you how to do that and just leave it there for today. Now, of course, there's a lot of other things you can do inside of the system. So if you go to Explore Industry Sectors, you'll see a bunch of modules here. And if you click on Explore Industry Sectors in California, then, and clusters elsewhere, you can click on one of these and get some high-level labor supply and demand data. You can filter occupations by highest paying, fastest growing, most employed. There's a ton of things that you can do. The other thing I'll point out is that the activities in the Career Zone are not restricted to just these bubbles, right? You can also click the I want to button and find different activities here, including the journals, reference list builder, cover letter builders, etc. Okay, so students will be able to see that. If you're part of an upgrade system or a premium educator account, then students can save career files to their hub. And the way they would do that is they can click the disk and find the file from their desktop and save it that way, or they can literally drag and drop into this green area and it will save for them, which is pretty cool, okay? So that's kind of a general sense of what they're gonna see in the different activities you're gonna use. But when we're talking about starting to use this system, especially early in this academic year, you're in the remote context, we're going to definitely stress that the place to focus is within self-assessment, because it gives the kids something to do, something that's kind of interesting, something that's going to make them want to go deeper into the system, but it makes it not as complicated. The other thing for folks who are trying out the system and maybe haven't noticed that we've included some new stuff in here, we've got right now inside the system Up the Ladder as a possibility for the folks who upgrade it. Up the Ladder is for upper elementary. So you'll want to take a look at that and learn more. And as I mentioned before, the lessons are a big piece of this too. Okay, so to set the kids up for success and just understanding how it's going to work for them, the very first thing to do is, for whatever your system is, and I'm going to use the California Career Zone as my example, you're going to have them go to the URL in question. So I just typed in cacareerzone.org. This is the general homepage, right? And it's going to tell them, if they haven't already, to register now. One thing that's going to be different this academic year, it hasn't been fully implemented yet, is that we are going to require students to complete the short registration. And the reason why we're going to ask that is because if they don't, then the system doesn't save the work that they've done for them. And then they come back and they say, I did the interest profiler and it's not there. Well, it wasn't there because you did it without registering, without kind of putting your name in and having a username. There's really no obligation. Students use the system for free. They own the data from a privacy standpoint. It's theirs. We don't share the data. We don't sell the data. We don't do anything like that. So there's really no downsides for the kids in having an account. And this way we'll avoid the problem that seems to be something that's persistent, where if a student completes a self-assessment but hadn't logged in, they lose it and they get really frustrated and wasn't a great experience. So we're going to ask folks to register. If they have a registration, they're going to click sign in. They'll have a username and password. They have the option to find a password and username. If they've lost it or forgotten it, it's going to happen, of course. And the other thing is, if they're under your management, you are going to be able to change their password or reset their password for them too. And that's actually one place I wanted to start, because that's just a reality of being on these Zoom calls these days, is you're going to have that kid who says, I can't get in. And it's hard, right? Because you're trying to juggle a classroom while also trying to help that individual student. And so just so you know, the place you're going to go is you're going to go to Manage Users. You're going to find the student, all right? We're going to use Shauna here. We're going to click on Actions, all right? Username and password, and then we can quickly change their password, all right? So that's something probably you're going to want to go into a separate room with them on, or direct chat them so their classmates aren't trying to hack into their account, mess with them or something like that. But yes, you can do that on the fly rather easily to reset their password if they're under your management. And so you want to make sure that you brought them under your management. Okay, so that's kind of the first piece, is making sure that you know about that. The other thing I'd say when you're using this in this remote context that you're going to want to know is, how do I get help? You know, if I'm having a hard time with something, what do I do? So if you scroll to the very bottom, actually, let me go to the home page just to show you this. You go to the very bottom, you're going to see a help support button. And at the bottom of the FAQ, you'll see an ability to send us an email. We're watching that throughout the day. We're trying to respond as quickly as we can to inquiries that come in. We'll do our very best to get back to you in a timely fashion. It's not instantaneous. We don't have a chat function yet, but we really do our best to get back to you very quickly. So if you get stuck somewhere, this is on the help support page, and you can click send us an email. The other thing you'll see for our California friends is the language toggle here. Just a reminder that in California, you can change the language from English to Spanish, and you can actually set the language to Spanish for individual students as well. If you click on the user in the upper right and you go to update personal information, the student does this, they can actually go down and for the preferred language, set the site to Spanish. So that can be another time saver for you if you're working with students who have a little bit more difficulty with the English language and are native Spanish speakers. Something to just be aware of as something that might help you in the remote context. Okay, so we've actually already covered the idea of entering the system and bringing students under management, but I did want to show you a little bit of what that might look like. If we go in here, let's see if I can, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to another demo site and sign in as a student, because I told you that it would be a similar blue box, but I would much rather show you that. So I'm logging in right now as a student, okay? And what you see is this page looks pretty similar to your page. It's not very different. There's no management toolbar, you'll notice, but there's, in this blue box where you had your educator code, this is where they type in their educator code, well, their educator code. So, you know, you might be on a Zoom, you share the educator code, they type it in, they click request, you're gonna approve them and they're gonna come under your management. So it's a really simple process for a student to come under your management and become part of a classroom. And if you're using the upgrade system, just something to know if you're part of a school or district using the upgrade system is we do have bulk importing and rostering options available. So we can actually bring, you know, a cartload of students in at a time with their proper assignment to the right educator and get that all taken care of for you before you launch the site with your students. So it is one advantage of the upgrade of avoiding the time of having to share the educator code and making sure kids enter that properly. The bulk upload options and grouping options are kind of a time saver and generally pretty helpful for folks. Okay, so this is what the student sees. The other thing is this area, right, this green area, it's really where everything starts for kids. If you assign a student a lesson, and that's what we're about to do, this is where it's gonna show up. So I promise you, I'm gonna show you that when we create this lesson, but that's how they're gonna access it. So if they're wondering, hey, look, you assigned me a lesson, where is it? Well, it really should be right in front of them in this green box. And we will usually call it out first or second. I will show you what that looks like in a bit. All right, so let me log out of the student account, and we are going to log back into my educator account. And we are going to jump to lessons. So the next big piece of sort of the realities of remote learning is that, you know, you really need two things. One is you need to give the students something to do that is going to help build their understanding of career readiness and planning, and that's really critical. But you also need that level of accountability to know that they've actually done it. And so it's really important that any technology you use is giving you that ability to monitor that and see the progress that folks are making. So this is where lessons come in. All right, so yes, when you were in person, and this is what most folks in California would do previously, you maybe just tell the kids in the classroom, hey, go to Discover Possibilities, dive into the interest profiler and get started and then submit it. And that worked, and that was fine. But in this context, it's a little more complicated. And so therefore, we're gonna suggest maybe using the lessons as the way to do this. So I'm imagining now that I'm one of you, and I want to create a lesson. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on lessons. I'm Eugene here, and I'm just going to click create a lesson. All right, so that's going to give me the first page here. I would give that lesson a name, and then I'd also give the suggested grade level that it would apply to. The share aspect here is only relevant in the context of the upgrade. You can't share a lesson with other educators at your school unless you're part of the upgrade account. But if you're in the free context, you just create it, and that's for your own personal use. So I've actually got a lesson that I've already started before today's call, just to help sort of make things move a little faster for us. And it's right here, right at the top, career self-assessment lesson for the Headed to September webinar. So this is the one, and I'm going to click on Actions, and I'm going to click Edit. So you can always edit an existing lesson. The big watch out on editing a lesson is that if you've already assigned a lesson to your kids, all right, so let's say we created a lesson, we assigned it, and then you say, oh, I wanted to add another task. You cannot just edit the lesson and add that task and have the student's lesson automatically update. Unfortunately, the system doesn't work that way just yet. Something that we've been asked about and something we're looking into. So what we would suggest in that case, in that scenario, is to create a separate lesson that's an addendum or part 2 of the previous lesson and just assign it separately. So just be aware when you're editing lessons, those edits don't automatically carry through to the kids' lessons. And there's a whole host of reasons, but I won't bore you with those. Okay, so you can see the main component parts of a lesson, and you've got at the top about this lesson. That's actually more for you. That's to remind you, like, what was I doing with this lesson? Why did I create this? And if you're in a context where you're sharing the lesson, it's great because that's also going to tell your colleagues, hey, this is what this lesson's for. This is why you might want to use it. And you get a lot of information about that. If you're in certain places that we've got tons of detail about, materials and standards as aligned to it. Every state has kind of a different setup here. But if you're doing this for yourself, okay, that's what about this lesson is for. That's for you, okay? And if I click on edit, this is where I might change the title. I could change the suggested grade. I can change the description. And again, in the upgrade context, I can share it. Now, the introduction and instructions area is for kids, or it's for the students, right? And so I open that up. And what this is this is basically the instructions that the kids are going to see when they open up the lesson. And you're going to want to sort of put it in your own language, your own kind of style, so they recognize you, they understand that this is something you created, not someone else, and explain it to them in a way that is going to resonate and make sense for them. So this is the first thing that they'll see, and I'll show you that in a bit. And then we get to tasks, okay? So what I haven't done yet in my lesson that I created here is add any tasks. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click New Task, and what I'm gonna select first is the Interest Profiler. We'll call it the Interest Profiler, and we'll say, please complete this self-assessment. And of course, you might want to write a little bit more about it. And we've got a box here that says required to be performed in current program or academic year. Okay, so in some cases, students did an interest profiler last fall or something like that. You may and probably will want to assign another one to them just to see if things have changed or evolved. The system, however, will remember that they did another interest profiler. And when they get to that task in your lesson, if they had done one even in the distant past, it's going to allow them to use that unless you check this box, required to be performed in the current academic year, which is what I'm going to click. I'm going to click Save the Task, and now I've got the interest profiler in there. And maybe we'll add one more task just for our demo purposes of, the lifestyle budget. Please complete this budget. Same thing, we'll have this be performed in the current academic year. We'll save the task. This is a 2-task lesson. I'm going to leave it here, but I do want to show you a couple of things about your options for what you do inside a lesson. If you're in the free system, your options are a little more limited, right? You can add a text reflection task, which is where you're basically asking them to write an answer to a question or an essay or something like that. You've got the actual tasks that are available inside the system. You can ask them to go to another one of the modules inside the system. So those are things you can do if you're using the free version. If you're using the upgrade version, then you have a few more options to play with. One is that you can actually build and assign a survey. So that's been something that's come in handy for a lot of folks. You can ask them to download a file. So if you want them to review a PDF about your perspective on what a job interview is like and why it matters, you can do that. You can upload that and then have a task be that they download it. And then you can also upload a video. This is nice because I know a lot of folks, have firewalls around kids accessing YouTube with their Chromebooks or things like that. You can actually upload an actual MP3 video. It'll play inside the system, which is, at least theoretically white labeled by the school, so the kids would be able to access it. So you'd have that ability. And then the last one in the upgrade context is you can ask them to submit work. So that's one where, say you're asking your sophomores to begin drafting like preliminary college essays and what that might look like, or you've got your own career plan template or format that you want them to use. Well, you have that flexibility in the system to actually ask them to create that elsewhere and then upload it to the system. I want to make sure that okay, should be good. My internet is giving me warnings, which always makes me nervous. Okay, so those are some of the extra tasks. But like I said, we're going to just stick with our 2-task assignment, which is here. And now we're done. We've got our lesson. Okay. So the next question is, well, now I want to assign it. All right. So how do I assign the lesson that I just created? I'm going to go to manage my users. All right. And I am going to type in, let's see if this is working now. All right, we'll do student 100 here, and we'll use that as our login in a bit. Okay, so we're going to assign this lesson to just student 100, or if we wanted to, we could, and we would click assign a lesson. All right, and we would click the lesson we just created, and click assign this lesson. All right, student 100 has now been assigned this lesson. I'm going to close that. Well, what if I wanted to assign it to the whole class? Well, I can just leave this whole thing open. And again, I click assign the lesson, select, assign this lesson. And anyone who's already been assigned a lesson, it's not like they're going to be assigned it twice. So now the whole class has been actually assigned this particular lesson. So let's take a look at that mock students homepage to see what it looks like. I'm going to log out of the student. And we're going to have that manager, that is. And then I'm going to log in as student number 100. It should be Genevieve. All righty. I'll just close this for a moment. Okay, so here we are. I'm in her Career Hub, and I'm going to click this first one. It says there's 3 assignments that need my attention. Review now. I'm going to open that up. And I'm going to see here from previous demos or whatever, there are a couple other assignments I've given her. But for our purposes today, you can see here's the career self-assessment lesson that we just talked about. She's going to click go, and now we're in. And this is where she's going to see that description we just wrote together, as we talked about in yesterday's class. Self-understanding is key to finding a career path that you'll love, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so those are my kind of preliminary instructions. She's going to click begin. And now you see the interest profiler is the first task. And it tells her, you have an interest profiler, however, this assignment requires one to be taken in this program year. Okay, so she's not going to get away with just submitting the old one. She's going to start a new interest profiler. She's going to continue. She's going to dive into the 30-question interest profiler. And for any of you who haven't seen this, I'm going to move really quickly, but hopefully you'll get the idea. It's going to present a number of tasks, and the student is going to react to that task in terms of, is this something that I actually potentially see myself wanting to do at work? Does this look interesting to me? And they're going to react kind of viscerally with these sort of visual images. It's a really kind of fun and engaging way to answer these questions that actually yields some pretty good data for the student about what their interests are according to those previously mentioned Totlin codes, and ultimately the occupations that they match to. Now, I may be confusing the system doing what I'm doing here, but I'm hoping not too much. And we're going to summarize our results. It tells me I'm realistic, conventional, and artistic based on my answers. We're going to view our occupations, and you can see the occupations that come up that match to what I filled in with my self-assessments. Okay, so I've now actually completed that task. That task is now done. All it asked for was the interest profiler. And I mention that because some of you may not want to stop there. You might want to add another task that's a written reflection about the occupations that came up and what looked more interesting, or when you compare different occupations, what did you find? What did you find about the amount of preparation required? Or what did you find about the work values, et cetera? So there's a lot of different directions you could potentially take this. But for the purposes of our lesson, she's done that, all right? She's at least completed one piece of this. And you can find now this career self-assessment lesson is one of the top cards because she's completed it pretty recently, and she's halfway there. Let's open it back up. And now we're on to our lifestyle budget. Same warning here that she's got to do this inside of the program year. So let's go in, let's do a lifestyle budget. Let's select a county that we are going to live in, and let's find out what this is all about. Well, the lifestyle budget is going to ask students about how they see themselves living and how much is that ultimately going to cost. So the students are going to answer questions, decide on the sort of budget items that are going to matter the most to them when they're living on their own or living with a family member or a friend. And based on these decisions, they're going to start building a budget. Now, you may find that some of the costs aren't accurate anymore, that, you know, inflation or just the cost of living in your area is much higher. You can always change the values of these things, right? So that's not a hard thing to do. You just do it in the green box. As we continue through here, we're going to get to the end point. You're asked about all kinds of things. I mean, health coverage, savings, you know, how you're going to live. Every one of the questions in the budget tool could itself be its own kind of module from my perspective in terms of financial literacy. But it's really up to you how much you want to expand within this particular task. They do also allow you inside this task to add other budget items. So this can be a good one to make students think about, well, what might you have missed? And as you can see from previous presentations, yeah, sometimes someone might want to have a dog and it might cost a little bit of money. And so now we add that to our budget. One thing I'll point out is taxes, yes, are included in this. So when we get to a minimum annual salary, we're getting to a minimum annual salary that includes taxes. And if we then view occupations, we're going to see all the occupations in the system that will make me at least the amount of money that I've kind of been indicated I need for the lifestyle I want to live. All right, so now that student has actually has completed both tasks. One last watch out for the remote context, right, is that now that they've done this, they will have to reopen this lesson, check their work, see that it's all there. Okay, I'm good. You'll see they're basically 99%. They're going to submit the assignment. Ask them to submit the assignment. Because they don't submit the assignment, you'll be able to tell that they're at 99% and give them a nudge. Hey, just go submit the assignment. So you'll see it on your end, but in order for them to come up in some of your reporting, they're going to need to submit the assignment. So boom, we've actually created a lesson, assigned a lesson, and completed a lesson all in a matter of about 10 minutes. Now, I know I'm flying. I'm aware of that. I'm also a fast talker. I was born in New Jersey, so that's unfortunately comes with the territory. But it's really pretty straightforward. And you could literally take this recording, which we'll share out with everyone, and just watch those 10 minutes and probably replicate that pretty easily for your kids. All right, so now they've done the lesson. That was really the important part. Let's get to kind of more of the fun part as we come into the home stretch of this training. I'm going to log in as the manager now, and I want to see basically what's going on with this particular lesson, and I want to understand who of my kids have actually worked on it. So I'm going to go to my manage users, and I'm going to click run a report, and I'm going to look at assignment status report. From here, I'm going to find the lesson that I just created. Oops, where is it? This is a little tricky because my eyes aren't going to it right away. And I want to find it because this will be much more helpful if I do. Let's try refreshing. Because in theory, it should be there. Let's try again. And I'm sure all of you at home are watching me and saying, it was right there, it was right there. I'm sure it was, and it's the hard part of doing this on your own. So I'm sure it was right there. All right, let's go run assignment report. Find the lesson again, let's try it. There it was. Okay, maybe it was there before, maybe it wasn't, but here it is, career self-assessment lesson. I select that, and I can see I've assigned it 27 times, all right? One person, we were just there, completed it, right? And here's the number of approved lessons as well, right? So, by the way, with this report, this is just showing it for your students. And that's a little, some of you might be getting confused saying, well, it looks like 2 people completed it. Well, one of them was you, the teacher themselves, so that doesn't count. Of the students it was assigned to, Genevieve has completed it. There it is. There's Genevieve, and you can see, all right, she's good to go. Now, what's this whole approved business? That's probably what you're wondering, and why hasn't her thing been approved? Well, there's another aspect of the system that you can use. If you go to manage lessons and you'll see here this approve queue, right? If I open that up, this is actually going to show me the results of every lesson that has been submitted by one of my kids. Now, by the way, this is approval queue can span multiple lessons and multiple potential groups of students. So you're not going to necessarily see Genevieve first. She happens to be the 3rd assignment here, but I'm getting to see her results at a glance. I see her lifestyle budget. Okay, cool. And I've got some options here. I'd also be able to read, if she wrote a written response, I'd be able to read that, make sure she didn't just kind of mail it in. Assuming everything looks good, I could save the approved PDF to her files if I'm an upgrade user, so that's kind of a cool thing for upgrade users, but you don't need to be an upgrade user to have this approval feature. Everything she did looks good, so I'm gonna click approve. I could reject it and send it back to her, but there's no need to do that because she did all the work we needed her to do. So going back to the assignment status report, you'll see that now when we find the same lesson, there's one approved, and that was her lesson. Okay, so hopefully all of that was helpful in the context of thinking about lesson creation in the system, how to assign it, what the student experience is going to be, and then the different ways you can look at reports and such for the students that you've assigned it to. And I hope that all, that made some sense. I'm going to kind of finish with, a few aspects of the upgrade system, make sure that you're aware of different things, but a lot of what I've presented today is going to be available to most of you at no cost, but there may be some things that you saw that you liked. I mean, the file management, the uploading of student work, or the downloading of a special PDF, the access to the preloaded lessons, including the new lessons that we completed over the summer for the system. So there's a lot of reasons you might consider an upgrade. I would say mostly the reason we hear folks wanting to upgrade is just because they need more students to manage than what are allotted to them at no cost. So remember that with a Pre-Educator account, you can upgrade that and manage up to 175 students as an individual. So that's something that you have the option to do. And if you're wondering where to find information on all of our upgrades, you will find it headed to .com/pricing, and you'll see kind of a comparison of all the different options that you have and the different costs involved, etc. So that's just, if you're considering the upgrade or if that might be useful to you, I just wanted you to know where you'd find that information. The last fun thing I'm going to show you for today is a little more advanced in nature, but it's pretty cool and it's kind of worth showing, which is one of the things we've been developing over the last several years is a way for, and this is for our upgrade customers, this is not a free feature, but a way for districts, counties, etc., to organize local opportunities and promote them to students, and then ultimately track student participation in those local opportunities. This is particularly useful in the context of CTE. And in the remote context, we know that there's actually a lot of virtual things like virtual mentorships that are happening where students are meeting with professionals at a local organization. You can manage all of that within the upgrade system in a really interesting and exciting way. And so this is what I wanted to show you. You see an opportunities hub here for students to find out about the state-of-the-art solution for work-based learning. They're going to select the type of opportunity they're interested in. So we might, for instance, look at remote learning in the context of COVID and this webinar. They're going to learn what remote learning is all about. They're going to figure out if it's a good fit for them. They're going to have a chance to thumbs up or thumbs down the different sectors or clusters that they're interested in. They're going to be able to apply. And when they apply, they are going to basically be applying to a remote learning opportunity in the career area they're interested in. And then you, as the educator or CTE or career leader, are going to be the ones who ultimately match them with a company or organization. You're brokering that relationship. It's not happening via the technology. We do that to protect the students. And then when you've done all that, you're actually going to be able to manage those local opportunities, manage the applications that have come in, manage the companies that you've invited to the system. This is a very robust hub to help you manage those local opportunities. It's really good. I mean, this is a way for students who are, say, interested in a particular career to find out that there actually are companies near them that are able to give them some level of experience or exposure now. It's wonderful for companies and an organization to be, taking an active role in the education of local students. And it's great for students who are trying to build up a resume and try to figure out kind of where they're headed in their career. So if you're interested in learning more about the Local Opportunities Network and what I've just kind of very quickly given you a taste of, you're welcome to email us, sales@headed2.com, and we can spend some more time talking about that. And I'm sure a future webinar will focus exclusively on local opportunities. All righty, so let's finish up. I'm going to change the share back to our presentation and bring us home. So just to summarize, we've covered a lot today, and we've really talked about sort of in the context of remote learning, try to keep this as simple as possible, but don't give short shrift to explaining at least what the CareerZone and CareerExplorer is all about. And where we focused there was let the kids know what self-assessment is all about. If you need a quick way to demo it, use that quick assessment. That's something you're going to want to do in a live context in remote learning. And then from there, if you're going to go to sort of shift to asynchronous learning and you feel like the kids understand what's happening, understand the idea of the CareerZone and CareerExplorer, then create that lesson, assign that lesson, make sure you have those students under management, because that's how you're going to be able to do all of that, okay? If you're not seeing a management toolbar on your website when you log in, that means that you haven't requested a free educator account yet. So you're going to want to do that. We're happy to grant those. We get to them as quickly as possible, usually within a couple of days at most. So please do send those along. And if you're already a free educator account user and what you saw today was awesome, but you do want more and more of what we've kind of showed you in terms of the features, you have the option to sign up for a premium educator account for $89. And if you want more information on all of that, that's $89 per academic year. You're going to go to headto.com/pricing. All right, that was a whirlwind. 50 minutes. I hope that was a helpful 50 minutes. I'm going to take a quick glance at the chat to make sure that there aren't questions that I haven't already addressed. And then we will begin to wrap it up. So there is a question about, can students be managed by more than one teacher? Yes, they can, is the answer. So students can enter in as many educator codes as they want, and they can be managed by multiple teachers. So those teachers have their own kind of quota, if you will, of 50 students that they can manage in California for the free educator accounts, but the students can be managed by as many folks as they want. There's a question about virtual job shadow, totally different platform, different set of things that are going on, but specifically if you're thinking about that local opportunities network, where we're focused is on allowing you the flexibility to work with whomever you have a relationship with in your area, not just folks that are already signed up with virtual job shadow. So for us, we have a lot more flexibility for you to work with the types of opportunities and companies that you want to work with and the different kind of categories of local opportunities. But those are probably a conversation we should have directly if you want to explore more. Okay, and I think that just about covers us. So you are absolutely welcome to email us at sales@headed2.com if you have any questions about this presentation. I really want to say more than anything else how appreciative I am as a parent. I think that our entire country is for the very hard work you're doing in very difficult circumstances right now. And this is not easy, and yet the amount of flexibility that's been demonstrated by teachers around the country, given this very difficult situation, is just staggering and amazing. And we really appreciate the work you're doing. Our goal is to make your work easier, especially as it relates to career readiness. If you have ideas, things that we could do to make the experience on these sites better, please let us know. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. I'm Blair. My email address is blair@headed2.com. You're welcome to email me. Good luck, everyone, and take care.